honored to be here with your new county chair, with Kimber, and with Marty, her husband, with Congressman Hastings, with all the great local elected officials who are here tonight. You all do such a good job of picking good people to represent you in government. And congratulations to you for adding to that list, most recently by electing your newest state representative, Matt Manuel. I got a text message from Senator Janelle Holmquist here during the dinner. She's over in Olympia, as you all know. She's a new mom. She's got a little one, and I don't know how she does it, frankly, juggling, not literally juggling the baby, but juggling motherhood. Well, she could, juggling motherhood and being state senator and a spouse. It's just really remarkable. You just keep electing good people again and again and again. And I have to say, none better than my friend Doc Hastings here. Congressman Hastings has been a friend of mine since my earliest days in politics. I met him through Jennifer Dunn, who we all still miss a great deal. And I am so proud of the fact that he has one of the most senior positions in the House of Representatives, chairs one of the most important committees in Congress as chairman of the Interior Committee and Natural Resources Committee. And you know, whenever I go back there, I try to stop by and see him, because I know that he'll have a good feel of what's happening. I know he's doing the right things, and that he cares deeply about Grant County and every part of his district. So it is really an honor to be here with all the folks who are also going to be speaking tonight. I want to do two things tonight, or three things. Number one, I want to say thank you. Number two, I want to offer a diagnosis. And number three, I want to offer a prescription. I'm not a doctor. I've never been played on TV. But I want to share some thoughts with you about the 2012 election and about where we go from here. But the first thing I need to do is to say thank you to all of you who worked so hard in Grant County, in Kittitas County. Where are our Kittitas County friends? Right over there. They came over from Ellensburg. Thank you guys. And of course, our friends in Chelan County, represented by the Simpsons here tonight, the great Republican, National Republican Committee woman, Freddie Simpson. Y'all worked so hard in 2012, and it showed. We had a phenomenal Get Out the Vote program, probably the best organized, certainly the best funded program we've had in the time I've been involved in politics. Doc and I teamed up, for example, on our Victory Center in the Tri-Cities. And we made hundreds of thousands of phone calls from that one Victory Center, thanks to great volunteers we had coming in every day. It was an amazing effort. We raised a lot of money. We raised it everywhere. We raised money in big towns, out on farms, in cities. We raised money here in Grant County. We had those resources available, and a lot of people sacrificed to be able to do that. And we were focused on the right issues as well. You know, focusing on reining in state spending, putting it on a sustainable course, putting schools first when we think about how the state is budgeting its money, focusing on reforming our public schools because we need better results from the money that we are spending, focusing on our colleges and universities, which have been hit so hard. We were focused on the right issues. In fact, those issues drove most of the debate. We were behind the right issues on the ballot, you know, the ones that we all supported, like the Initiative 1185. Initiative 1185, once again, restores the 2/3 requirement for raising taxes. And once again, it received over 60%, close to 65% of the vote. So with all of that success, with all that was going right, what went wrong? How do we explain the outcome? First of all, let's pause and reflect on the fact that it was close, again. As it was, not quite as close as 2004, but 3% is pretty close in the governor's race. It's close. So when you're that close, you have to stop and think about a lot of little things and big things as well. What do you do to be more successful in the future? Well, let's start by talking about communications for just a minute. Now, let me give you a story here. I mentioned Initiative 1185, passed overwhelmingly, just like it's passed before when it's been on the ballot. You know, when the voters have been asked, do you want to put in a limitation on raising taxes? Do you want a supermajority requirement? Voters have overwhelmingly said yes. So why is it that over 400,000 people who voted for Initiative 1185 also voted for the other candidate for governor? who was opposed to Initiative 1185, who called it undemocratic. Why is it that a couple years ago, when the Democratic Party worked very hard to put an income tax on the ballot for voter consideration, and it was rejected overwhelmingly by the voters, why is it that their majorities were returned to the state legislature? Why are voters voting for the very people who are against those fiscal reforms the voters clearly want? We have to think about that, I think. We have to spend some time reflecting on where we're missing that connection with the voters. Because these are issues that we're on the right side of, that we all support, that a large majority of voters support, but many of them, hundreds of thousands of them, are not translating that support to support for our candidates. So I think we have to do a couple things. Number one, we have to make sure they understand these are our positions, just like they're their positions. And number two, we have to work harder to make sure there's accountability. That politicians can't try to push for an income tax and try to undermine spending restraint and the 2/3 requirement and then get reelected. So we need to spend some time on communication. And I want to say that has to happen at the statewide level, it has to happen at the local level. What I hope you'll do here in Grant County under Kimber's leadership is that you'll spend a lot of time talking to voters throughout the year. And obviously Matt and Janaea, Judy, your elected officials are all going to be doing that. But they need help from all of you as well. If you were to go out and identify a dozen people you know who didn't vote for me for governor or didn't vote for other candidates, ask them why. And ask them, by the way, did you vote for Initiative 1185? Did you vote against the income tax? Odds are they'll say yes, especially here in Grant County. We need to have that process of communication. We need to be talking more to our neighbors, people we go to church with, people who we encounter through our businesses and occupations. And we need to do that because they need to see that the face of the Republican Party is not some face at the national level. It's your face. You are the Republican Party. That's why you're here tonight. Being here tonight is an act of leadership. And it's critically important that you came here tonight because, as Tom said, we're not giving up and we're not going away. But we need Republicans talking to their neighbors, talking to people who think of themselves as independent voters and think of themselves as being Democratic voters, to find that common ground, because the messaging isn't working. We're not successful enough. I'm not saying we're not having effect. I'm just saying we're missing that last few percent. Obviously, people like Matt and Doc and I, we did great here in Grant County. We got a high percentage of the vote. But at the same time, we know some people didn't vote. Voter turnout was 5 to 10% higher in Seattle than it was in Eastern Washington. That's a lot. All of Jay Inslee's victory margin, plus some, came from 2 legislative districts in Seattle. He carried those 2 districts combined by 97,000 votes. He got 85% of the vote in those 2 legislative districts. And his statewide margin was 94,000. So it matters when turnout here is a little lower. Now, why is turnout lower in some parts of the state, in Clark County or parts of the Olympic Peninsula or over here on the east side of the state? Why was it a little lower? Sometimes it's lower because people who are really conservative and really believe in their conservative principles get disgusted, frustrated, they don't vote. Or they decide that some of the candidates aren't conservative enough, so they're just not going to vote for them. That is the definition of self-defeatism. All right? And yet we know that happens. So another way we need to communicate and spend time over the next couple of years is talking to people we know who are usually voting Republican, they're deeply conservative. They need to be hearing from us as well. Because no one gets to sit on the sidelines, and yet we know that happens. So that's another part of the communication as well. The other thing we have to do, and I'm working on this nearly every day, is that we need to organize our friends to work more effectively together year-round. I'm talking about great organizations like the Farm Bureau. I'm talking about individual organizations like the fruit growers. I'm talking about the wheat farmers, the builders and contractors, the realtors, the restaurant association, all these great organizations. They need to work together year-round instead of just getting together in a coalition around 6 months before the election every 2 to 4 years. So I'm working on that part of it. We are forming an organization that will bring those groups together to work together year-round on communication, on strategy, and on accountability. This needs to happen in part because the other side's been doing it for several years, starting back in about 2005 to 2006, and they're having a significant effect. Their group is called FUSE. FUSE as in fusing together environmental groups like the Sierra Club, labor unions like the Teamsters and SEIU, the trial lawyers. They have 14 full-time staff working in downtown Seattle. They've got a news organization that pushes information out over the internet. They have grassroots organizing. They're doing what you're supposed to do in politics. They're organizing, they're raising money, they're having an effect to push their significant, decidedly left of center agenda forward. They're way left of the average voter in Washington State. So they know that in order to be successful, they've got to be more effective with communications, and they're doing it. So we're going to put together an organization that brings together our friends, our constituent groups, people that we have a lot in common with, to do the same thing. Because otherwise, we're just going to get pummeled in Olympia. If you're following what's happening down there, you'll hear a report, I think, in a minute. It ain't pretty. And you know, we can work together on that. We can also work together to support Doc Hastings and Dave Reichert, Kathy McMorris-Rogers, Jamie Herrera-Butler. They need our help as well. They need our voices raised up. And they need support groups like the ones I just mentioned, supporting them as well. So we're going to be working on that. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, you know, despite the disappointment of last fall, I'm not going anywhere. You know, I moved here as a kid. My dad retired from the Army, and we adopted the state as our home. We love the Evergreen State. Marilyn and I are raising our 4 kids here, and we're determined that this state be turned around so that our kids can afford to stay here, can get a good education, and can raise their families here, because we don't want our kids leaving Washington and raising our grandkids somewhere else. We're the county chairs. We're going to be here, just like we hope you'll continue to be here as well. Showing up at these events, volunteering when candidates are running for office, whether that's for the state offices, the federal offices, or the local offices. We need to be there to support them as well. I'll come back every time you ask me to. I love Grant County, I love the people here, and I will never forget the great friendships and the great memories we've built here together. We just need to make a slightly better memory when the next election comes around. Thank you very, very much.